Hey guys, Scar9 here, and welcome back to my channel today. In this video, I'm going to be starting a brand new series, and in this series, we're going to be taking a look at how specific types of weapons have been changed since the beta of Destiny 1. For example, in this video, we are going to be specifically looking at how buffs and nerfs throughout the different updates and patches in Destiny's history have affected hand cannons. So let's go ahead and get into it. So directly after the initial beta of Destiny, we got word that there would be slight alterations to how hand cannons would function. This update would be known as Update 1.0.1 and would have four main changes. First off, the base zoom of hand cannons was increased. Secondly, there was an increase to the base damage that each bullet did, ranging from 4 to 15% depending on the fire rate of the specific hand cannon. The third change was that magazine size were now increased on a scale of 8% to 20%, once again depending on the archetype of the specific hand cannon. And finally, in addition to all of that, all hand cannons received a nerf to base accuracy depending on their archetype, ranging from 75% to 100% less accuracy. The next changes to hand cannons came in October of 2014 with hotfix 1022. The only change here was that the in-air accuracy of hand cannons was increased. Now this is a good time in the video to mention how vague Bungie can be with these patch notes. I'm sure all of you guys have experienced this at one point or another, but they tend to not give us the exact values of what they changed. So in this case, we know that they increased the accuracy while you are in the air, but we don't have an idea of how much they did so by. So there are many instances of this within all of the patch notes regarding hand cannons and pretty much every other weapon type. So I will do my best to keep the wording exactly the same so you can get an idea of how much these stats were changed. However, past that, I will use exact values of what we were given. After this came Update 111 in February of 2015. In this one, two changes were made with the sole purpose of making hand cannons less effective at longer ranges. First off, the initial accuracy you receive with hand cannons was nerfed, but only enough to be noticeable in long-range engagements. Furthermore, Bungie also tweaked the range stat across the board for hand cannons. With the Taken King came Update 2.0 and even more changes to hand cannons. This was also the start of Bungie doubling back to correct changes that they had made in earlier patches. For instance, the first change that is made in Update 2.0 is that the base zoom for hand cannons is reduced. So obviously that is fairly vague. However, if you guys remember, back in the first update to hand cannons, this stat was actually increased. So even though the wording is much more vague here, I'm going to assume that these changes balance each other out. Just keep in mind that there's definitely a real possibility that these assumptions are off by a few percentages of error. But with how vague Bungie is being, it's really hard to make accurate approximations. Next, a change was made so that the damage falloff was moved closer to the player. In addition to this, both ADS accuracy and hip fire accuracy were reduced with this patch. And finally, the magazine size of all hand cannons was reduced to balance out another change that was made within the first update to hand cannons. Soon after this came the release of Update 2.1.0, which immediately worked to at least partially revert the ADS accuracy nerf they had just made in the previous patch. And that was soon followed by Update 2.2, and a small change was made during this one to increase the amount of ammo players could carry in their inventory for hand cannons. Next came Update 2.3, which made the damage fall off steeper at a range, which means it now took more bullets to kill from long distances. The damage that hand cannons dealt in PvE was also increased to some extent, and in addition to those things, this was also the first update to have changes to a specific archetype of hand cannon. Low-range hand cannons now had an increased initial accuracy and a decreased accuracy drop, which made them more viable at a slightly longer range. Now we are up to Update 2.5.02, which happens to be in the month of February this year. The first change for this one actually reverted the initial accuracy stats for all hand cannons back to what they were at the launch of the game, essentially wiping out a good number of changes they had made to hand cannons at this point. But from there, it was all nerfs. Both aim assist and bullet magnetism were reduced at long ranges. The minimum amount of damage you could do at a range was reduced by 17%, which means you can now do less damage per bullet. And finally, the base damage of all hand cannons was nerfed by 5 meters, making them even more ineffective at a long range. And finally, the last changes to hand cannons came with the Age of Triumph and Update 2.6.0. Once again, this was an extremely small nerf that moved the range fall off 3 meters closer to the player, which once again moved to make hand cannons less effective at a long range. So after all of these updates, we can see how hand cannons compare to their state in the beta. The final buffs that hand cannons have received now amount to 4 to 15% more damage per bullet depending on archetype, an increase to in-air accuracy, more ammo in their inventory, and damage in PvE has also been increased. Finally, low-range hand cannons now have a decreased accuracy drop compared to their former versions of themselves. And that brings us to the overall nerfs. The base accuracy of hand cannons is now between 75 and 100% less of what it used to be, depending on the archetype. The damage fall-off is now more than 3 meters closer to the player, and the base range has been decreased by more than 5 meters. In addition, both magnetism and aim assist values have been nerfed at long range, and finally you can now do 17% less damage at an extremely long range, and there's less accuracy while firing from the hip. So now that you have heard all of the official changes, how do these changes affect how the weapons handle? Overall, hand cannons have been made into close range killers. They reward skilled guardians with an accurate aim with some of the fastest time to kills in the game. And I think that fact alone makes them a favorite of a lot of Crucible players, especially the more competitive ones. Now I do want to address the fact that I left the exotic changes off this list. Even without the new raid exotics, there are still 5 exotic hand cannons, which is honestly just way too many to be grouped in with all of the hand cannons in this video. So if you guys want me to do a video specifically on them, I can probably make that work sometime this summer, so definitely keep an eye out for that. At the end of the day though, what do you guys think about all of the changes to hand cannons? Are you happy with those? Let me know why or why not down in the comment section below. Personally, I don't mind a great majority of the changes. I mean, I still have a palindrome that can two-shot people, and obviously that shows how effective these can still be at really close range. But once again, I'm interested to know what you guys think. I hope you guys did enjoy this video and this breakdown. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating and to share this video with your friends. If you're interested in seeing the video on screen, you can click the annotation to be taken to it. Finally, subscribe for more awesome Destiny content, and I'll see you guys in my next video.